This is how you lubricate that. Mentioned this to you the other night, but this is how you do it. Get your lubricant here, and then you just hit that little nubbin that's in there, if you can see it. Let me turn on this light. So, if you can see that in there, then you take your oil and you go right on that dot and just put a little dollop on there. Not much, of course, because you don't want it to mix into your paints and stuff like that by accident. And then you take your button, in my situation it just comes off, and you get it on that little section, and then you just work it a bunch. Work it back and forth, up and down, back and forth, up and down. Just work that oil in there real good. You already know this, you're a mechanic, shit. I don't really need to explain how to lubricate something, but it is nice to see an example. Okay, so I'm getting ready to airbrush. I've assembled my airbrush after I lubricated it. Needles inside, I've got my compressor on, tank's full. I've got my airbrush booth set up with the hose out the door. And I have a very helpful little piece of equipment that you don't realize is very useful, and that is some plastic spoons. Now they're polystyrene, so they're just like a model kit would be. Probably not as soft or anything like that, but it's something that you can use to do a lot of different things, including testing paint schemes, learning how to airbrush, and so on and so forth. I've got a paper towel that's been down for a long time. As you can see that it's had a bunch of things sprayed onto it and some test paints and all that kind of stuff. I don't usually keep it down because I want to keep clean, but I have it down so that I can see if my airbrush is spraying colors. So the first thing I do before I actually start airbrushing is kind of make sure that my airbrush is clean completely. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to a different angle and you'll see what I mean. So like I mentioned, I've got my airbrush all set up and ready to go. The big thing here though is I'm going to take some alcohol, some of the isopropyl alcohol that I have in this. I'm going to put a few drops into my cup, like so. And then I'm going to let it sit for a second. And then while it's sitting, I'm going to get a paper towel, just a single paper towel, doesn't have to be anything special, but I'm going to fold it over so it's nice and thick. And then one of the big things I'm going to do is do what's called back bubbling. Back bubbling is where you block the front end of your airbrush and cause it to back bubble into the cup. So for me, I just put the needle into the paper towel and then I pinch around it. Don't pinch too hard, of course. You don't want to bend your needle, but then you make it back bubble. So you can make air go, then you pull back and it'll back bubble. What that does is a lot of different things. You can mix paint this way. You can clean your airbrush a little bit like I'm doing right now just to make sure that it is clean. I don't see anything floating in the alcohol that I have in there, as you can see. And then what I do after that is I spray that alcohol out onto my paper towel. And this is where this white paper towel that's laid down inside of here comes in handy, because you spray it out and you look and see if there's anything that's on the white paper towel that would be, like paint. Like, so you'd see if there was a black paint or blue paint or whatever you painted with last. After you spray all the alcohol out, go ahead and wipe out any residual in the cup, and then you give it a little bit of time to dry. Being as it's isopropyl, it dries pretty quickly. Another way that you can help it dry faster is also do a back bubble without anything in it. So same thing that I just did, is forcing air back into the cup. And what that'll do is it'll help dry things out in there. If there's any residual alcohol, it would get bubbled out as well. All right, now that I have Cleaned out my airbrush to make sure that there wasn't anything left in it from the last painting session. I'm going to thin some paint down. In this situation, I'm going to prep these spoons so that I can do a test paint job for a gold color. So the base paint that I'm going to use in this situation is going to be a black primer. My black primer is the Vallejo primer. This is what I use, but I don't suggest it. It is a pain in the ass to learn how to use, and it clogs your airbrush really badly. I highly suggest Badger Steinel Res or something along those lines, as I hear it performs a whole lot better. Another one is the One Shot from MIG, Ammo by MIG, Jimenez, and I have some of that in white, but I find it's a little bit chalkier than the white in Vallejo. Regardless, this is what I have. This is what I'm going to work with. We need to go ahead and get this shaken up, and I'll show you a little trick. So what I use to stir up my paint is this little lacquer nail paint shanker. It's made for nail polish, and you just attach your paint bottle or nail polish into this by doing this, essentially. It comes with these little strappy straps. You put them on there like that, strap it in like that, and then you set it on a flat surface and press the button, and it'll sit there and shake the piss out of it. Reason I have this is because, well, I played Diablo 2, and I still play Diablo 2 to this day, so I have carpal tunnel syndrome. Not very bad, but it's enough that shaking a paint bottle effectively gets a little annoying on my wrist, so I got that. Alright, so for priming, whenever I'm doing this Vallejo primer, I usually prime at about 15 psi. And the best way to make sure that you're actually at this correct PSI is, you're going to check your gauge. I'm going to move this down. So here's my compressor, there's my air gauge. So the big thing there is it's showing closer to 20 right now, but you want to test, verify what it is whenever you're actually pulling your trigger. So if you notice, it drops down for me. So mine hovers around 15 whenever I'm asking for air. So that's how you do that. Now then, I'm going to show you how to mix in the cup for acrylics. Now notice that I say this is for acrylics. If you're using enamels or lacquers, I highly suggest mixing before you put it into the cup. Now, a lot of people that I see online use a brush to mix their paint in the cup. What I do is I use a toothpick and a specific order of operations. First off, get an idea of how much paint you're actually going to need. In this situation, I'm going to do these 3 spoons in a black primer. I'm going to need probably a good half cup of paint. Half cup in this, not like a fucking measuring cup. So the order of operations for me, the way I do it, is I put in my drop or 2 of airbrush flow improver. This bad boy. This is what helps with, keeping things from getting tip dry and all that kind of stuff. So I put this in first. So 1 drop, 2 drops. With primer, I usually use at least 2 drops, sometimes more. Then, after I add that, I add in my thinner. In this situation, I add in, 5 or 6 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It should be about good. I check the level inside the cup, and it looks about where I want it to be. Then, as the last step, I take the actual paint and I put that in the cup up to the point where I want it to be. So about right there. Now this is all trial and error. It's gonna take a little while to learn exactly. So apparently my video just got deleted for some reason that I was taking. It stopped. But regardless, I'll go over what I was going over before, and that is the order of operations for adding, mixing and adding paint into the cup. So the first thing I add is 1 or 2 drops of flow improver. So I've already done that, I've added it in there. The next thing is going to be my thinner. So then I add however much thinner I need for however much paint I'm going to be using. This situation I used about 6 drops. Then I need to know how much paint I'm going to add. In this situation, I'm priming 3 spoons. So I added about half a paint cup. Now then, after that, I'm going to take a toothpick, like I mentioned, and I'm going to stir up the bottom, get all that thick paint at the very bottom, stirred up and mixed up a little bit. And we're just going to do that a little bit, yada, yada, yada. And everybody says, you know, run it up the side of the cup to see if it is about the right consistency. You'll know what your right consistency is when you kind of play with this a little bit. Everyone says about the consistency of skim milk. That's not a bad thing to go off of. But I just kind of suggest finding your own level, as it were. Now then, the last thing I do before I start spraying is that back bubble thing I showed you before. This helps mix up all the stuff that's in the very bottom of the cup into the rest of the cup. So plug your needle and get it bubbling back. Now, since it's paint, it's going to fill up the cup a little bit. That's normal. That's okay. Just give it a little bit of time to either go down or just stick your napkin in there, get it out of the way, so you can view the level of how much is actually in there. And once you've back bubbled a little bit like that, we're going to do a test spray. And this is where this paper towel that I have laid down comes in handy again. And you just want to pull back a little bit on the paint release and see how it's coming out. If you notice where I'm spraying, it comes out nice and smoothly. And there you go. That's how you mix in the cup. So I'm going to paint a little bit. I'm going to show you how I do it with these spoons. And you'll notice from time to time that I stick the needle into this paper towel to clean it off. That's how you get rid of tip dry. I'll make note of it, but I'm going to have my fan, my airbrush booth turned on, so it may be a little bit noisy. If it can't hear it, I'll kind of narrate over it in post. But yeah, here we go. So clean my needle, grab my piece, and spray it. So I still got a little bit of paint left to futz around with, but I've got these bad boys sprayed to the consistency that I want them to be. It looks nice and shiny right now, and this one is a little janky because it had some stuff on the surface of it, and this one's a little janky because it had some stuff on the surface of it, but no big deal. I'm gonna go ahead and spray a little bit more on them here and there, and we'll go from there. If you leave your paint in your cup for a long time, of course it's going to start to dry. In that situation, you will want to back bubble like I showed you before. If you leave it too long, of course you're going to need to clean your airbrush out completely. But yeah, that should kind of get you started on some of this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and finish up using the rest of this paint on some different model pieces that I have that I need to get painted on, and go from there. I think I've got a couple of dudes to paint, but yeah, hopefully this is being helpful. The model I'm working on. tip gets dry when I'm spraying this, I hold this in my mouth, and then I take my paper towel and clean my tip. So that's what you're seeing happen whenever everything just disappears from the screen for a second. As they say, is that. I think they did a pretty good job getting that all primed up. So now you can see that these are primed and ready to go. You can actually see that they're pretty well dry at this point, but I'm not going to touch them with anything until they cure after 24 hours. Same thing goes for the Super Star Destroyer. It's primed up, ready to go, and all that kind of stuff. It's not dry yet, of course. It needs probably another couple of minutes till it gets dried to the touch, but I'm not going to touch another drop of paint to it until, you know, it cures after 24 hours. So I have a handy-dandy drying rack here. Essentially, it is just cardboard boxes, edges that I've cut along the side, and then I take duct tape and wrap them like that, and then you take your bamboo skewers and you stab them into it like that, and you know, you can lay your other stuff down because you don't really care about it getting messy. But that is a quick and easy way to make a drying rack if you're going to be using bamboo skewers. In this situation, this has a hole where you plug in the stand for the display, and I just put a bamboo skewer with some sticky tack on it so I could, you know, stick it to it, and it's good to go. If you're using clips, it's the same thing. When I mean by clips, I mean alligator clips. You notice I got a big old stein of bamboo skewers with alligator clips, little different projects kind of stuck to them still, little car, sword that I told you about, all that kind of stuff. So I ran out of paint while I was painting the Super Star Destroyer there. I finished painting it. I was just going over to make sure that there weren't any spots or anything like that. So now that I'm finished painting, I need to clean out my airbrush. This is where good old friend isopropyl alcohol comes into play. Good old isopropyl alcohol. You're going to put in quite a bit, at least to cover up where you were at the top of where you filled it up to when you had paint in it. So in this situation, that's about right there. This is where it's good to have Q-tips and toothpicks, nippers, and then little dooley-dads like this for cleaning it. I'm gonna let this sit in there for a little while, then I'm gonna go through and do another cleaning of the tip, and then making it back bubble, all that kind of stuff. And let it sit some more, so that it kind of, you know, has a chance to pull all that out of there. All right, so we've let that sit for a little while. Now we're gonna spray it on out. If you notice, it had a little bit of a black dot there for a second. Now it's just spraying pretty much clear. A little darker than clear, but that's fine. I just let it go. Just spray the whole damn thing out. Just all of that alcohol, just let it go all the way out. So it's gonna take a little while for this to go through. Just full bore. Sometimes, you know, do a little bit of that so that it has a chance to you know, pulse out and helps it kind of clean out a little bit more. But I'll just let this thing spray out completely. If you're using lacquers and stuff like that, this is where you would be using lacquer thinner. This is where this thing comes in handy. And you would just spray it inside there like that. This little filter that's right here keeps all the fumes inside. But that's for lacquers and stuff like that. Alcohol fumes aren't going to hurt you typically. Just be aware of what medium you're using. You got some more still left in there. You can always just do a quick back bubble. Let that go. Just keep spraying it on out. Now, I burn through a lot of alcohol. And that is pre-COVID. Post-COVID, alcohol is getting harder and harder to find and more expensive. So I'm trying to get more stringent with it, but I'm not going to spray all the way out in this situation. I'm going to leave a little bit down there on the bottom. The reason being is I'm going to take my rag that I've been using here, my old paper towel, and then I'm going to make a nice little point and stuff it in there. Then I'm going to start circling it around like so to clean that cup out really good. I'm going to spray, getting any of the excess alcohol out of there, and it's coming along a little bit better. And it's still got a lot of black paint in there, but this is nice and filthy now, so I'm just going to set that one aside and grab a new one. And I'm going to fill this back up again a little bit. Not all the way up like it was before, just up to a certain point so that it has a little bit in there. I'm going to take a Q-tip. I'm going to dunk that Q-tip in there, and then I'm going to start scrubbing. It's like doing your ears. Even though they suggest not doing this to your ears, but, you know, we've always never listened whenever it comes to that, and we'll probably go deaf because of it. And just circle it around, get all that good and clean. Make sure you see all the angles, so you know you're getting all that paint out of there completely. Bing, bang, boom, that looks pretty good. And then kind of do the same thing, just circle around, boom, 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 like that. And then you take your new clean paper towel, you go in there, did like you did before, and just circle it around. Pull all that paint out that you can. Now then, that's looking pretty good and clean. There's a little bit down at the bottom, that's okay. We're gonna get to that here in just a bit. I'm gonna put a little bit of alcohol in there, and then I'm gonna spray it out. There you go. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to start doing where I disassemble it and clean it. Essentially, I'm done for the day anyway, so I'm just going to take my airbrush apart, pull your needle out nice and slow so you don't fuck it up. We're going to take the rag, preferably where it has alcohol on it already, and then just do a quick rundown of it like that. And you can see where I did that on there. That looks good. All right, and we can do a little bit of an inspection on the needle, just make sure everything came off of there really well. If not, we can, you know, go back over it, hit it again, soak it, whatever we need to do. And I'm gonna start disassembling the rest of it. I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect it from compressor. And then I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew this. And before I unscrew the rest of it, I'm going to take a Q-tip and this paint tray. I'm gonna fill this paint tray up with alcohol, just a little bit. I usually put in enough, and you'll see what I'm doing here in just a second. But I'll dip that in, and then I'll get that little bit of remainder that's in the bottom there, and just circle it around real good, and then go back to town on it with the other side. You're gonna burn through a lot of cleaning supplies. It's just one of those things that you kind of have to bite the bullet and not worry about it. Then I'm gonna take my little wrench, which is missing in action because I'm stupid. Where did it go? Where did Mr. Wrench go? Here it is. All right, and I'm gonna undo this. Now then, the other reason I have a pull of this is drop that in there. Bing, bang, boom, that's nice and easy. And we can take a Q-tip, preferably one that has, you know, a clean side, dip it, and then go inside of here. Get that nice and clean. Wipe the edge with that. And then that's where this comes in. These little bad boys. Dip it in alcohol like that as well. Shove that bastard in there. And just get all the way up into where you can get. You can see inside the cup. And I got it deep in there. It's all the way up inside there. And then you just kind of wiggle it all the way out. You'll notice it brings out some paint. Now this isn't like a super deep clean because that's going to involve me dunking it into my ultrasonic cleaner. But this is a good post-painting cleaning. I also clean it close to this level whenever I'm changing colors, depending on, you know, what the next color is going to be. If it's like something that, you know, isn't going to get hurt by having a little black in it, and, you know, you don't have to go as thoroughly. If you're going from white to something else, just, you know, clean it a little bit, but don't worry too much about not getting what you need there from it. Okay, that looks good. All right, so I'm gonna set that aside for now. Now I'll worry about my little nozzle here. So that nozzle, of course, has a lot of paint in it because that's where paint flows from the cup into. Clean the outside a little bit. But the trick to cleaning these nozzle out is what I do. Get a fresh paper towel. And I grab the corner of it right here. I dip it into some alcohol like that. And then I twist it nice and tight. So you get something like that. And you shove that in there. And that looks all nice and good. And then you take your needle. If you have an extra needle, you can do this with your extra needle and use like the actual pointed side, but I use the not pointed side to force this in there as much as I can. And keep in mind, this is how I do this. This isn't necessarily the way some professional is going to do it or anything like that, but once you've got it stuffed in there real good, just go ahead and start twisting this bad boy while it's in there, and then slowly pull it out, twist it, and get it on out. Now then, what you're going to do is actually look down inside of it and make sure that you can actually see the other side, essentially. See if you can, I don't think it's going to pick up on camera, but regardless, make sure you can see light coming out the other side. Another little trick that I do is where I put that back in there, and then I grab a clean pipette, one that doesn't have paint on it. Let me actually find one because I'm sure I have one that I have set aside for this specific thing. I do. There it is. Right here, my pipette. What I do is I'll suck up some alcohol and I'll shoot it through. All right, this pipette is broken. There's a hole at the top of it, so I'm gonna throw that one away and grab a fresh one. That one's working better. And you just force a bunch of alcohol through it. After you do that, come back over here, dry it out a little bit. You can even roll it back up again like I showed you before, this time without any alcohol in it, and just shove it in there and get it nice and dry. And whenever you look inside of it, you shouldn't see any like paint or dust or anything like that. If you do, that's where you can also get another one of these. But here's the thing about this. This thing is pretty big on the tip, so you don't want to shove it in there too hard. You want to just get it in there nice and delicately and make it so that you don't fuck up your nozzle. So clean that out, make sure that it looks good, make sure that there's no fuzz or anything like that in there. Blow it out if you need to with your mouth, just don't spit into it. And that's looking pretty good. Now then, I'm gonna clean this little tip. It doesn't usually need to have much cleaning done to it because paint usually doesn't come out except for the very end. It may have a little bit of buildup on there, but it usually doesn't. After I've wiped that clean, I'll just kind of inspect it, make sure there's nothing like egregious with it. After that is the pretty much last stage of cleaning for me, and that is just putting my brush back together and making sure that it sprays clear. So I'll go ahead and put in my nozzle first, hand tighten it down, and then take my wrench and tighten it down. Don't tighten it down too tight, of course, because these are pretty delicate whenever it comes down to it. And I'll put the cover on like that. Verify that that feels good and is facing the right direction. And then I will push my needle in, toss my chuck on, toss the end on, grab my compressor hose, put my quick attach nozzle back on there real good, make sure that this hasn't come loose for some reason and it's not blocking too much if it is, and put some alcohol in there. And the first thing I'm going to do is do another back bubble and just watch the inside of it and verify that it comes out clean. If there's nothing too bad coming out of it like that, like it is right now, a little bit of dried paint that's coming out, that's okay. I'll go ahead and get rid of it whenever I spray. And then it's just a matter of spraying. And like I mentioned, spray onto a surface that you can tell there's going to be paint on it. Here's another trick. You can just spray onto this. See how it looks. And it looks like it's just a little damp. At the very end, it came out, had a little bit of paint. Those were the chunks that I saw floating in it. I'm going to do that one more time just to make sure that it doesn't have anything left in there. Got to be a little thorough with these little bastards because they are delicate. Back brush. Now, if you see some stuff floating around in your cup, you can, of course, go in there and just absorb it. Absorb it like that. And then you can spray out whatever is left. See if anything comes out with it. Refill. See how it looks. Back bubble. That looks pretty good. Notice that's spraying pretty clean. And there you go. Empty it out. You can go in and wipe up any residual alcohol if you want, but you know it's going to evaporate pretty quickly. I'm going to disconnect it from a hose, turn off the compressor, put it into a safe location and leave it there. The other thing that I like to do, just kind of as a thing that I do, is actually disassemble my brush again completely. Well, not completely, but down to pull the needle out, setting that aside, pull off the nozzle, let's unscrew it again, and then just let it dry like this. Let it sit. The nice thing about doing this all on top of a paper towel is that you can quickly clean up your area by stacking everything that isn't disposable off of it. Grabbing the little things that are disposable onto just a paper towel. Make sure that you don't have your needle on here by accident. Make sure you don't have your nozzle on here by accident. I have thrown stuff away like that because I'm stupid, but just make sure that it's just that, and then just pull it up. And this is the benefit of having a spray booth or something along those lines. You really just don't care about the surface. But there you go. There's a whole process right there that I just filmed for you there. I hope you enjoy. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, let me know, dude.